Ever have that moment, you know, like right after you leave the doctor's office
Uh-huh.
and you suddenly remember like a million things you should have asked?
Oh, yeah.
I swear it happens every time. It's like my brain waits till it's too late to actually be helpful, you know?
Totally. Happens to the best of us. But hey, there's good news here. Being prepared.
Yes.
Huge game changer.
That's what we're diving into today.
Absolutely. This article we're looking at, Explain Medicine, it really digs into how powerful, like, just being organized can be for these appointments.
And they don't just tell you to get organized. They actually have this story, right, about this guy, Chris. And Chris is like the poster child for what not to do.
Yeah, poor Chris. But so relatable, right? I mean, he's a little disorganized, forgets a thing or two, pretty normal stuff. But then, because of that, his whole doctor visit just goes kind of sideways.
Exactly. You read that and you're like, oh, man, I am Chris.
We've all been there. But it really drives home this point. Clear communication, having your info together, it's huge EE if you actually want a good doctor experience.
It's true. It's like we expect doctors to just automatically know what's up, but they can't be mind readers.
Exactly. They rely on us to give them the clues, to piece things together. Think of it like a detective case. The more info they have, the faster they crack it.
Makes sense. So what Explain Medicine is saying is that we're a big part of making sure that info is clear, right?
Yeah, 100%. What you tell your doctor, that's what shapes how they understand your health. Give them a good history, details about your symptoms, and it's like handing them a map, quicker diagnosis, treatment plan that actually makes sense for you. It all stems from that.
Okay, so how do we avoid that whole Chris situation?
Well, Explain Medicine has some seriously good tips. Like, have you ever thought about writing down your symptoms, but like in the order they actually happened?
You know what, I haven't, but now that you mention it, duh. That seems so obvious.
Oh, it sounds simple, but it's huge for doctors. Helps them see patterns, right? A cough before a fever tells a different story than a cough. You're basically handing them the narrative of what your body is going through.
Wow, that's a really good way to put it. Okay, so timelines, got it. What else?
This one's kind of obvious, but still.
Yeah.
Figure out what symptom is bugging you the absolute most. Write that down too. Let your doctor know right away what your biggest worry is. And of course, never underestimate the power of a good old-fashioned list.
Your list of questions.
Exactly. Write them down beforehand so you don't blank when you're actually face-to-face with the doc.
Okay, confession time. I was notorious for having medical info everywhere. Wallet, random scraps of paper, you name it. It was a mess. But Explained Medicine, they had this idea, and I swear it changed my life.
Hit me with it.
The medical folder.
A game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
A designated spot for all that stuff. Prescriptions, test results. If I saw a specialist, that summary went straight in there.
Especially if you see multiple doctors, it's a lifesaver. Everyone's on the same page. No more repeating tests you've already had. It's just good sense.
It's like having your own little health library. But life happens, right? Sometimes you can't find that one document you swear you just saw.
Oh, tell me about it. That's why it's good to have backups.
Backups how?
Well, first off, don't be afraid to ask your doctor's office for copies. That's what they're there for. Also, get in the habit of keeping a list of your medication's name, dosage, how often you take it, and, in a pinch, snap a pic of those pill bottles. Seriously, any info is better than none.
Speaking of info, I thought it was cool how Explain Medicine even mentioned digital stuff, like apps and folders for keeping track of your health info.
Oh yeah, especially these days with everything being digital, super handy, especially if you travel a lot. Just got to make sure whatever app you use is secure, Don't want your medical history floating around for just anyone to see.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how much easier tech makes things, even with health stuff. But one thing that really stuck with me from Explain Medicine, it's not just about having the info, it's about owning it, feeling empowered,
100%. It's your health, your journey. Shouldn't just be along for the ride, right? You're in the driver's seat.
I like that. But okay, owning the info is one thing. What about actually speaking up during the appointment? Explain Medicine talks about that too, right? How do you make sure you're really heard when you're actually there in the doctor's office?
So important. It's easy to feel rushed or kind of intimidated in those moments.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, this is about you. Your voice matters.
Yeah, easier said than done sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's like you walk in with your list of questions, but then...
things get away from you.
Totally.
That's where being assertive comes in. Not rude, but firm. You have the right to ask, to clarify, to make sure your concerns are heard. Refer to your notes, look them in the eye, and if the conversation starts veering off track, gently steer it back.
It's like that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sometimes you got to be a little squeaky.
Exactly. You're a participant in your own care, not just a bystander. Switching gears a bit, what does explained medicine say about those times you actually disagree with your doctor?
Ooh, good one. That's always a little awkward, right?
It's
Like,
fine.
they're the expert. You don't
Not
want to...
exactly.
Yeah. But I'm sure explained medicine has some advice there, right?
They do. And it boils down to this. Second opinions are your right. Medicine isn't always a straight line. Different approaches exist, and if something doesn't feel right in your gut, the diagnosis, the treatment, whatever, get a second opinion. It's your prerogative to feel completely confident in the path you're taking with your health.
That is so reassuring to hear, because sometimes it does feel like doctors have all the answers. Like, they're never wrong, but...
They're human too, right?
Exactly.
They've got the knowledge, the experience, but that doesn't mean they're infallible.
Mhm.
So yeah, trust your gut, ask, clarify, and don't hesitate to seek another perspective if you need it.
Okay, so we prepped like pros. We aced the in-office communication. What about after the appointment? There's more to it than just walking out the door, isn't there?
Explained medicine makes a really good point about this. The info you get at the appointment is only as good as your ability to actually use it, understand it, act on it, all that.
Okay, so how do we do that? Because I'll admit, sometimes I leave those appointments and it's like my brain's overloaded. Info dump.
It's a lot to process. That's why taking a minute to just decompress is key. Go over your notes, reread anything the doctor gave you, and if there's a new medication, make sure you understand the dosage, any side effects, all that good stuff.
It's like taking notes in class. Right. Helps cement it in your memory. Seriously, those few minutes afterward can make all the difference. But one thing I really appreciate about explained medicine is how it's not just about being like a super prepared patient, but it's also about that back and forth with your doctor.
And open communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to call the office later if something comes up, right?
Absolutely. It's a partnership. The whole point is to have that support system.
Yeah.
They're on your team, but you got to be an active player.
This whole deep dive has been, honestly, a bit of an eye-opener. I feel like I've got a whole new playbook now for dealing with, doctor appointments and stuff. It's not just about finding the right doctor. It's about being the right patient.
Love that.
Yeah.
Being informed, prepared, taking ownership. You said it. Not just finding the right doctor, but being the right patient.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Totally. So to wrap things up, Explained Medicine, they gave us awesome tips for getting ready for appointments. But now I'm thinking, and maybe this is something our listeners can think about too, what about during? How do you make sure you're really heard even in a quick visit, Because that's the other piece of this puzzle, right? It's something I'm going to be working on, and hopefully everyone listening will too. Until next time, stay curious.